While science is for the most part accurate, it is also used as a tool of homogenization of individuals, which in the case of gender categories for sports, often carries sexist consequences. Side government believes that there are many top-grade female athletes whose talents, physicality, and efforts defy the biological limitations that is normally defined by gender. We have Ronda Rousey, who was undefeated in the UFC for many years with the fastest knockout rates even amongst male athletes. We have Nicole David, who was the world number one squash player for 8 years, undefeated in her category. Serena Williams, Claressa Shields. I could go on for days. What this essentially proves is that gender categories are increasingly becoming a more arbitrary limitation in how far female athletes can compete in the highest level of sports. What do we propose coming from side government? We want to allow women to opt into competing against men in the same sporting categories, in which case we imitate the same model in which we allow Paralympic athletes to opt into conventional Olympics. This was a move to reflect that the top 3 world record holders for, let's say, the fastest track runner, one of these spots are often also occupied by Paralympic athletes. We believe the same trend is being reflected with the top female athletes who also are competitively on the same level as the top male athletes. This self-identification ensures that we can balance both the fairness of the treatment of gender as well as the highest competitive level of sports. What is the stance coming from side government? We want to empower the competitiveness of sports as well as empower the movement for gender equality. I have 2 arguments in my speech. Firstly, let's talk about the competitiveness of sports in 2 levels, and then we'll talk about creating a safe space for non-binary athletes. On competitiveness of sports, firstly, we think that gender segregation, again, is an arbitrary limitation on the capability of individual athletes. So this inhibits the level of progressiveness of the competitiveness of sports. Because while science calculates gender differences accurately, it calculates on the average. But athletes is the 1% of individuals in society who physically defy the law of averages. So while cumulatively men may have higher stamina, muscle mass, agility, etc., we have a lot of individuals, especially modern society, who can now access gender equalizers. We have high sophisticated level training regimes. We have high level nutrition schemes. We have very specific activities and exercises that craft an environment of competitiveness that allows female athletes to defy those biological limitations. We couple that with the kind of talent, discipline, effort, long hours that female athletes put into their craft. This creates a lot of top-notch female great athletes who can compete on the same level of men. And to ensure a higher level of selfness, this is where the model of self-identification kicks in. These women themselves believe that they are capable of competing with the same level of men. Not only that, this biological advances that men have is purely derived from the fact that they have a higher level of testosterone. That testosterone gives them a higher ability to accumulate muscles and a higher level of strength, and etc. But under status quo, we have an increasing phenomenon of intersex athletes. Intersex athletes like Caster Semenya, who's a woman but is born with a high level of male hormones. So that's why physically she's much closer to a male's physicality than a woman. But if Caster Semenya is undefeated and can possibly compete against men as well, what happens under conventional methods of sport? She is shamed into going into a public gender testing in which she is forced to prove her own gender just because she is born a woman but physically she more closely resembles a man. By having the model of self-identification, we allow both fair treatment of women and men within athletes, as well as increasing the level of competitiveness within sport. On the second level to the first argument, we also believe this elevates the spirit of sports to a new level of competitiveness. Because when you look at Serena Williams, who won her umpteenth Grand Slam, and then we found out that she was pregnant while doing the entire routine, and she's completely undefeated, no other athlete in her category even comes close to her level. That undermines the spirit of sports. The whole point of having sporting inter-exchange is because we want to see a close physical competition in which 2 athletes are on similar capacity and they battle each other for that final Grand Slam or that final championship. This is completely lost in the cases of Ronda Rousey and Serena Williams, where there's no other female athlete within their own category who can create that environment of competitiveness for them. So we are also elevating the spirit of sports to a newer level of competition if we allow higher level female athletes to opt into competing with men. Let's talk about the second argumentation on why this creates both a safe space for non-binary athletes but also empowers the movement for gender equality. So firstly on gender equality, but before I move on, any POIs? Great. Let's talk about the narrative of gender. Because right now, there is a narrative of weakness that is associated with the gender. This is strengthened even more when there's an inability of even the best of female athletes to compete on the same level with the most weakest or average of men amongst the male category. Incidentally, this is also the same narrative that justifies giving women a different sets of rights. Oh, because they're different but equal. That justifies giving them a different level of treatment. That's unfair, Mr. Speaker, because the narrative of difference is what justifies the gender discrimination of women. What do we tell you is the new narrative coming from the self-identification model? This means that even on the highest level of differences, which is biological, physical differences, once we say that that segregation no longer exists, then we empower women to be equal because they're capable of competing with the same platform of men. So that strengthens the narrative for gender equality. What is the second level of analysis here? We want to talk about queer, non-binary identifying athletes as well as hermaphrodites. For all of these individuals, sports is often the most sexist environment for these athletes. Not only you have extremely discriminatory attitudes within the sporting environment, but even the public and corporations' treatments of these individuals often create environments where they are not given a safe space. No POIs? Okay, great. So for these individuals, they receive a public punishment in terms of either outing their identity or secondly, publicly questioning their gender identification. For these individuals, instead of going through the entire witch hunt of which category you belong to, and not only that public questioning is a shaming process, but secondly, they also undermine your achievements, in which case all of Caster Semenya's category members say that she didn't deserve to win the gold Olympic medalist for track running because of that public confusion on what her gender is. This allows people to completely feel safe in sports because they can self-identify as to which gender category they belong to. So this is less about not just competitiveness, but also fair treatment of individuals. So if we create safe spaces, it no longer creates a deterrence for all of these non-binary individuals from ever competing within sports because they don't believe that sports can potentially be a safe space for them. Mr. Speaker, two things we need to look at. Number one, we need to achieve a level of safe progressiveness within the sporting atmosphere to ensure that athletes are treated fairly. But secondly, the main purpose of sports must always be to secure the level of highest competition for society to appreciate. That can only be achieved when we allow the highest level of female athletes to self-identify their capability and compete with it. For all those reasons, we propose.
Right, thank you, Prime Minister. What will be the case of the opposition side? I'd like to invite leader of the opposition.
So thank you, Governor Speaker. That was a very empowered speech. So going into the issue, we'd like to explain that the motion of the matter at hand goes into detail of what equality is and whether or not equality will be achieved through this motion. We believe that our policy is to divide the competition between men and women, and we will explain why it's justified and why there are more harms than benefits if we are to divide this issue. As of the current status quo, females do have a significantly lower track score than the males because, as our previous speaker explained, that there are differences biologically that are inherent within the difference between women and men biologically. Our arguments are basically constructed of three main arguments. Our first argument is explaining why the difference between men and women is there is a biological difference that has been constructed socially, and this will explain why the division is justified. Secondly, we will go into explaining how we are going to achieve the goal of gender equality. And the third argument is the additional harms that come to these professional athletes if the conversion is actually happens within the sphere of the sports community. So the first argument goes into how the division is actually justified. So mainly speaking, what we're going to explain to you is that the sexual difference that between that actually exists between men and women has been socially constructed and went developed throughout like generation by generation and eons. The thing is that the hunter-gatherer idea is a myth that was constructed when males in like 100 generations or like a few thousand generations ago had to compete in like a polygamy relationship wherein they would have to be like stronger and like have to like go out and like earn like go out and hunt animals and like whatnot. So what we were saying is that rather in the social in the biological difference is a code that was socially constructed in the like very past, where women were ideal in a narrative where women were weaker and men were like supposed to be like the hunter-gatherers. So we believe that this actually has factored into how women and men have biologically evolved, and therefore has come into a result with we're in the status quo of the current society as of right now. That the BMI with the fat to the fat to muscle ratio is actually 100% different with the men and women based on like testosterone and hormones and whatnot. So like also extending on that argument, another difference that has come from their like difference of evolving through these narratives of women as like just stay-at-home women and men, thank you, as hunter-gatherers, is that like also that the shape of their pelvises are different, as it's sometimes it's biologically impossible for like men to do some yoga poses that are like easier to do for like women. So we believe that there is and was a narrative that was socially, thank you, later actually evolved wherein men and women are different, and we believe that actually confines and constrains the actual biological differences that came out and like emerged throughout their passage of time.
I think most of what you're saying is perfectly conceivable, but you have to tell us, even if men make up like 7 out of 10 of the top percentile, why will you stop the top 3 women who can compete from choosing to compete within those particular categories?
So the issue will be dealt with in our third argument, which is going into the additional harms of why this is going to potentially harm their professional life, and this will be explained at 2 levels by our second speaker. We would also like to clarify that the issue at hand is, as our previous speaker mentioned, that it's a inclusion of a fierce competition, because besides the satisfaction of personal accomplishment, there like lies at stake a medal for glory, and this actually is a representation of like their whole country. So the stakes are very high, and like based on the issue at hand, we want to explain that upon these harsh conditions, if women are to be subject to biological differences that have been socially constructed through like years and years, we believe that the meaning of sports, which is based on cooperation and competition and winning hard, we believe that these values will be intrinsically harmed throughout the process of actually putting this motion to hand. Thank you.
Right, we thank the leader of the opposition. To continue the case of the government side, we'd like to invite the next panelists.
Where barriers that we thought were immutable characteristics between individuals have melted away the advancement of technology, innovation, as well as sophisticated training methods and our understanding of human physiology and biology, ladies and gentlemen. There are a myriad of individuals around the world, whether it comes from different classes, races, groups, like religions, or in this instance, genders, ladies and gentlemen, that are able to pull out the same kind of performances as they are able to with each other, the best, the top percentile of the world. And for some reason, on the opposition bench, they create these arbitrary, imaginary, divisive lines to say that you don't deserve to run with us, even though you run faster than us in this particular circumstance, ladies and gentlemen. They actually need to respond. And I don't think she actually provided a response to my point of information that if there are three individuals, even if you concede all the arguments on the opposition bench, that perhaps there is greater probability in the top 10 there'll be more men because of all those biological differences. But why is it will you stop the top percentile of women from being able to compete, pull sports to the highest level of competitiveness like Mai talked about, and fundamentally be able to fulfill the spirit of sports that we initially intended to, then find the best athlete in the world? Fundamentally, that's a principal question that the opposition bench has not answered in this debate. Before we go into my substantive material, I think it's also worth noting that beyond that, the leader of opposition really did not present challenge to the material presented by by my ladies and gentlemen. That when we talked about things like being the kind of things that melt away the differences in the status quo and the 21st century, that means that more women than ever before are able to compete on the same level, not only delegitimizes the argument presented by the leader of opposition, we said it first and there hasn't been a response. But secondly, ladies and gentlemen, that means that there are more and more women that want to compete in this particular circumstance. But secondly, we also told you that it was an opt-in system and not something like we were going to abolish gender pure categories anyway, ladies and gentlemen. So we don't see why you're stopping individuals who wanted to compete on those same platforms from doing it to begin with. And we don't see why any argument that it might harm their personal life or practical life or things like that is any reason to stop that they make those decisions on their own and want to bear the consequences of those decisions on their own anyway. But secondly, and very importantly, is that we told you it creates some more inclusive structures for trans, non-binary and queer individuals who are being massively discriminated under the status quo because of being forced to either being shamed for identifying. If I'm a non-binary trans individual, ladies and gentlemen, in a status quo, I have to choose in a very public platform, male or female. That can be very delegitimizing to my own identity and really traumatic as well, as opposed to the access that we provide you, a gender-neutral category where everyone can just compete, no questions asked about your gender in this particular circumstance, ladies and gentlemen. The kind of exclusion that the opposition continues to allow is something that's morally unacceptable in this particular debate. We need a principled answer as to how they're going to either A, mitigate it, or B, whether they're okay with it under the opposition bench. We haven't had an answer yet. Now, my substantive material will cover two things, ladies and gentlemen. First is how do we ensure that public sympathy and public support is actually transferable to women? Because if we acknowledge the worst case scenario of the government bench, why is it that people don't watch female sports or the WNBA and things like that, ladies and gentlemen? Is because A, maybe they're sexist in the worst case scenario, or B, maybe because there's just not enough interest in this particular circumstance. We're going to tell you how you're going to be able to transfer the kind of fandom that you have for male sports to female sports. But secondly, we're going to tell you how you're going to be able to transfer the corporate support that you currently enjoy in male sport towards female sport. And because of these two reasons, ladies and gentlemen, you're not only going to help people that want to opt in into our policy, but also help individuals that are currently in the WNBA or purely female sports in this particular circumstance. I will take a POI. Yes? Yeah.
So I think those extreme and minor cases can justify the gender inequality in the status quo, which gives the illusion of equality. So.
Okay, but it's alright because it's still an opt-in system, and we've given you reasons as to why there's a greater probability of women being able to equalize their performance anyway. We think you really need to respond to that. So first, is in regards to whether or not you can transfer fandom in this circumstance. We think it's exceptionally important because at the moment, ladies and gentlemen, the default, and this is the status quo that the opposition has to defend, is that the perception of the WNBA and women's sports is that they're definitively weaker, less exciting, and therefore are less worthy of watching in this particular circumstance. Serena Williams might be the GOAT, right, the greatest of all time in terms of tennis, but less people watch her, or she gets significantly less pay in comparison to Roger Federer or Rafael Nadal, ladies and gentlemen. And that's because the fandom is not transferable in that particular circumstance. But how do you change that under the government bench? We think that several things that occur in our proposal. The first thing is that upon watching female players compete with male players on the same platform on a regular basis, if you are a fan of Rafael Nadal and you see this person compete Serena Williams again and again and again because of the confines of the competition, you create more and more familiarity with female athletes you have otherwise not watched under the status quo. We think that's exceptionally important because fandom, as well as being personally invested in particular players, is only created at the point at which you create familiarity with the face, the playing style, as well as the personality that's come out after the games when they give out interviews and things like that, ladies and gentlemen. That can only be created when they compete on the same platform as us. But secondly, even if we take the worst case scenario, let's say they hate the other player, the same way how Man United fans hate Man City fans, for example, we think that's exceptionally good for us as well, because grudge matches and rivalries or even interpersonal hate between players as well as teams, ladies and gentlemen, is typically what drives excitement from fans to be able to pay attention to certain sports. The reason why it's exceptionally important is because slowly the barriers of what you believe to be gender barriers of performances break down as you become personally invested in more and more female players, which you would have otherwise not watched at all under the status quo, ladies and gentlemen. We think that's exceptionally important. That's transferable to the WNBA and other female players that also benefit from the change of this perception. But secondly, corporate structures. Ladies and gentlemen, let's take the worst case scenario. Let's say that corporations don't want to fund WNBA because of my first argument. But ladies and gentlemen, even if the corporation believes that females are not good, corporations always advertise boxing matches, NBA matches, between all-star teams and non-all-star teams purely out of profit motive, ladies and gentlemen. Because not marketing a player, not marketing a team is loss of money if they can't generate the kind of excitement and watchability in that circumstance. We create that watchability and drive profit incentive and corporate structures to be able to deal with gender equality and attention in this circumstance. Females get more money, females get more attention. We think we help sports better on the outside house. Thank you very much.